This is the Diana de Rosa interview with Equus Television Worldwide correspondent Diana de Rosa. Join Diana as she traverses the globe, bringing you the latest information from equestrian newsmakers, newsbreakers, athletes, and luminaries from across the global equestrian spectrum. The Diana de Rosa interview starts now.
I'm speaking with Stacey Adams, and she lives in New York, and she's the president of Active Riding Trips. And I love this topic because it talks about equestrian vacations. But before we start that, Stacey, I want you to talk a little bit about how you first got involved with horses.
Oh, I would love to do that. So when I was little, I had an uncle, but not an uncle. Do you know what I mean? Like a family friend who's super close and you say, you know, Uncle Roy. So he actually owned an Arabian breeding farm in New Jersey. So from the time that I was 4 years old, we would go to visit, and really, I didn't know it then, but that was how it all started. I had a passion for it. I ended up in the town where I grew up, a little town called New Canaan, Connecticut. It's not super duper small anymore, but they had a riding stable about 2 miles from my house called the New Canaan Mounted Troop. So it's a pretty historic place, been around for a while, and started by Margaret Cable Self. So there was a riding component, there was a marching component, and you had uniforms. But it was really all about horsemanship. You learned how to take apart a bridle and put it back together. And you rode, of course. And it was really that was really how it started. I had a chance to join very close to my house. My parents were super supportive of it. And yeah, once a week, there I was. And it never went away.
It's so fabulous because everybody's got a different story of how they started. And that sounds so fascinating. What a great way to start. All right, but now we need to jump into what your Active Riding Trips is all about.
Oh, super fun. So in a nutshell, we offer immersion vacations, both domestically and internationally. We have 137 trips in 21 different countries, including the US. And to make it into a snapshot that's easy to see on a bigger scale, we either offer training vacations, so they're lesson oriented in dressage, hunter, jumper, cross country, working equitation, or we offer trail riding programs. And the trail riding programs are varied. They're either point-based, so you ride out in different directions every single day, or you ride from point to point. And that's, in a nutshell, that's how it works.
I noticed that you have a Facebook where you chat with people, and I think that you should let them know a little bit more about that.
We love our social media community. We are very involved in Facebook and also on Instagram, and we offer lovely little snippets of information. We share not just stuff about the horse trips themselves, but we talk a lot about travel in general and dreaming about fun places to go. We love the topic of riding different breeds, and that's what we really try to stick to in different countries. So you'll ride the breed of that country. But the Facebook page really allows us to engage with folks and to get to specific questions and to daydream together and just to have a lot of fun. I welcome anybody to contact me directly. We have a nice little office staff of about 5 people. So most of the folks that are dealing with reservations and questions are sometimes dealing with me, but mostly dealing with the other 2 gals, Denise and Carol. But anyone is welcome at any time to connect with me. I will say this, we are one of the only operators out there that can say that we will not offer a trip unless we've personally taken it to make sure that the quality is exactly what you expect. So if any questions arise, I'm happy to be the one to answer them.
I want to dig in a little deeper. First of all, tell us a bit more about your background with horses.
Well, horses were a hobby for me growing up. And I think, like many people, my parents took a different approach to raising, a kid, which was I had an activity every single day after school. So I played in the band and concert band, the marching band. I ran track. I played volleyball. I mean, I had guitar lessons at one point. That really hurt, by the way, like the fingertip thing. But so that didn't really take so well. And horses were just a small part of that. But the idea that they had was to keep me busy and to expose me to different different things. And I think they thought that the horse piece would sort of drift away. It was just a phase, but it didn't. It really stuck. I didn't have the opportunity to own my own horse until I was out of college and could afford to buy it myself. But interestingly enough, I went to college in California, and I thought one of the greatest aspects of my college life was that they had horses on the campus, and dressage lessons were a PE credit. So that worked out pretty well for me as well when I was in school. But no, I bought my first horse when I was 27. And yeah, I mean, I've just kind of kept at it since then. I am a pleasure rider, so I ride for fun. I mainly trail ride. I will go to schooling shows, so I'll do a few dressage schooling shows or maybe some like low hunter things, but I do it for fun. I mean, I love to hunter pace. The Hudson Valley where I live is absolutely rich with amazing riding trails and lots of people who want to join you on them. So yeah, it's been easy to keep that as an integral part of my life.
Well, I'm really glad you have a horse background because I'm sure that inspired you. But I want you to explain to our audience what it was that brought you to, doing these travel tips.
That's an interesting story. And literally, it was the finger of God putting me in a particular place at a particular time. It's funny how life works out like that. So I was living in Vermont. And at that time, I had moved up there with my husband, who had taken a job working for IBM. So we lived in Burlington. And I could not find a job up there with my skill set. There were very few corporations, and all of it was mainly retail oriented. So on a whim, I worked at a local barn, which was actually pretty slick because at that point I didn't have a horse, but I knew I was going to get a horse at some point. And that barn was so integral to my knowledge. I mean, we didn't muck stalls. There was someone that did that, but we did all the feeding. We did all of the rations. We did the grooming, the turnout, the management of the daily horses. We witnessed births. We witnessed deaths. I mean, like all of those things that really make up the day to day. We worked in minus 15-degree weather in the month of January because horses still need to go out. They need to eat, or they need to be hand walked if there's no pasture. Like it was a super education. I had no idea how to do things like put a polo wrap on the right way. I didn't know there was a really preferred order of blanketing, like starting at the front and working toward the back. And just all the little things like that someone who has a horse knows. It was such a great education. My point in that, Diana, is that I did that for a year, and then I moved back down to Fairfield County in Connecticut, which is a much more metro area. So on my resume was this year of working at this barn, because at that time in the late 80s, early 90s, you couldn't have any gaps on your resume. That didn't look good, right? They kind of went, where did you go? So fast forward to 2003. When I was working for a Fortune 200 company, I got tapped by a recruiter who said, listen, hey, I saw your resume. I wonder if you would come interview for a job with a travel company that I represent. It's 50% travel. Your skill set seems to be a good match. At the time, I was traveling 100% of the time. And so 50% sounded like a pretty good deal to me. So I interviewed for the job, and it turned out that it was an equestrian vacation company. And so that is literally how I got into the business. I worked for that company for 5 years, and then I bought it.
Oh, wow. Well, I really want you to delve into now some of the trips that you've already taken. Let's get our viewers inspired.
So I always get the question, I'll start with the question that's most popular. What's your favorite trip? And so that is super easy for me. Because I have the great opportunity to travel quite a bit, the trips that resonate with me are the ones that are really, really, really different from anything else. So I would say, for example, any safari that we offer is absolutely on your bucket list if you are a strong intermediate or advanced rider. I mean, because you are literally riding shoulder to shoulder with zebra, with wildebeest, with these giraffes that are, it's just incredible. It's really almost movie-like because you're in it with them. So that, and it's significantly amazing. So that would be one that I would say should be on everybody's bucket list. And if your skill set isn't quite there, you'll want to try to work toward it, because you just can't even imagine what it's like. But the other, and there's several different options. So, we can level out things a little bit. The other one that is really one of my favorites is our trip to Machu Picchu in Peru. And the reason I like that is because you're literally dealing with these Quechua people in these tiny little villages, a village of 15 people. And you're trekking your way through the Andes. And it's just it's such a wonderful, peaceful, these people are so sweet and kind and generous. And you're staying in these luxury lodges. So you're not camping. You have hot water, you have hot tubs, you have a nice bar set up if you want to have a drink at the end of the ride. But then you end up at Machu Picchu, which is like, it's incredible. These ancient Incan ruins, and you're seeing it with a guided tour, and you're thinking to yourself, we can't even get our roads fixed reasonably at home. How are these people building these places with, anyway? So those are kind of two of my top. But the European trips, the ranch trips here, I love the ranch trips here because you're working cattle, you're taking sunrise rides, you're taking sunset rides, and with sundowners at the end. The European rides, you're riding castle to castle. You're really like getting into the heart of whatever that culture is in that location, and you're coming back with a sense of knowing exactly what makes that up, as well as you're coming back with all the bragging rights, like, oh, I was at Chambord Chateau, I was at Amboise Chateau, oh, I was at the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland, I saw Kinnity Castle and stayed in an actual castle with stone walls, so you're getting all of that great fun stuff to come back, and it just, I don't know, makes you want to go again.
And you did it on a horse. All right, so let's go through a day. Pick a topic about, how does it begin? How does your day begin? Where do you go from there? Where do you stop? When are you actually riding? Just choose any typical day.
Sure. So days typically begin with breakfast in the morning, and the breakfast it varies depending on which trip, but it always has a protein and cereals and things like that. And so you have a chance to have your coffee, wake up typically around 8:30 is usually breakfast. And so then you have a chance to go back, brush your teeth, whatever you need to do in your room, change your clothes, and you're heading out to get to the horses around 9:30 or 10 and mounting up at that time. Some of the rides, you have the opportunity to tack your own horse. Some of them, the horses are already prepared for you and you're getting on. But you're usually heading out, on horseback by 10 o'clock. And you're riding for 2 to 2.5 hours. There might be a couple of stops along the way. Like if you're riding in Ireland, there might be some ruins, like an ancient dolmen, which is a burial site of an old king of one of the clans. So you might stop at that and take some pictures. But typically you're riding for 2 to 2.5 hours, and then you pull up to the lunch place. Often lunch is on the trail. So either a table is set up and is waiting for you with food, or depending on the ride, you might have a packed lunch. So, that takes about an hour and a half. And then you're mounting back up again and riding for another 2.5, 3 hours in the afternoon to get to the final destination. So some of the rides really do offer more time in the saddle than that. But most of the time, in general, we say it's 5 to 7 hours of riding per day. And it's nice because it's a combination of riding. It's not a lot of walking. The slowest ride we offer is 50% walking, 50% trotting cantering, some combination thereof. So, and you're covering varied terrain. We don't typically jump along the way, but there are a couple of our more advanced rides that do have ditches that do have to be jumped over. So, but we cover that really clearly with you ahead of time, so you know.
How do you figure out the different trips that you do? I mean, I'm sure you go there ahead of time, but how do you then plan what's going to happen during the day?
So when I'm looking for a new destination, I'm usually researching all the different rides in a particular place. And when I go to check, and so I contact them all and I'm asking questions and I'm getting on the phone with them. And then when I plan a trip to go scout it, I want to see the ones that sort of have met my litmus test initially, because often you can have a conversation with someone and it sounds amazing and then you can get there and be like, it's a bit like house hunting. The picture that you see, on the real estate brochure looks beautiful, and you get there, and on either side is like, a dump. I mean, literally. So, that's what we look for. And then when we're on the trip, I'm doing all the things that, I'm testing how it goes. I'm doing all the things that you're not supposed to do. I'm trying to pass the guide. I'm like, checking to see if my horse has brakes. Can my horse go? Does my horse listen to me? What happens if I stop? Because I used to wear contacts. I don't anymore. But like, if I stop my horse because I got a problem with my contact and I don't call out, does my horse throw a fit? And how does the guide react to stuff like that? So I'm really not the ideal client, but I'm testing it because when you're on a ride, things do happen. And sometimes people remember what the etiquette or the process is supposed to be, but sometimes they don't. And then we tweak it afterward. So often I will have certain things that I want for our clients, and generally it's no problem. But yeah, that's why we go do it. We want to see, do the horses kick at each other? Are they friendly? Are they easy to ride? Are they comfortable? What condition is the tack? Is it falling apart? Do they need to replace it? Those are really important questions.
They are important questions. So then how do you, I mean, it's not just one horse. I mean, how many people are on a trip? So are they the ones that decide which horses you're going to actually ride, or do you actually choose them?
Right. So before someone books a trip or when someone's booking a trip, we have a lengthy conversation with them and we talk a lot about what their current riding is. So for example, someone might say, oh, I'm an experienced rider. I ride all the time. And so we'll say, okay, well, what sort of riding do you do? Well, I trail ride. Okay, what are the trails like? Because if you're riding, for example, in a place like Kansas, which is very flat, it's very different riding than if you're riding in Colorado. So you're going up mountains and you're having to shift your weight and help your horse and things like that. That also makes a difference. We're asking people, it's funny. So many times people will say, well, especially like for the dressage trips, for example, well, my horse is schooling Prix St. George. And so we'll say, oh, that's great. Are you competing your horse at Prix St. George? Oh, no, my trainer is, doing that. Oh, fantastic. Great. So what are you doing with your horse? And so you have to sort of ferret out that information. We pass that to our partners on the ground. They then have an interview with each person. It's very casual. It's usually over aperitifs or dinner the first night, and they get a feel for it and they assign the horses. You asked a super simple question, but you got sort of the war and peace answer of it. So they assign the horses, but let me be clear that if for some reason you don't like the horse that you have, the first day of the ride is always set up to allow for changes on that. But typically you do, on the lesson programs, you ride different horses. On the trail riding programs, you ride the same horse every day. I mean, because you're, moving to different places.
I love hearing about that because I've been on some of these trips and I've wondered, how you've got a lot of horses you usually have to pick, but how many do you usually have on a trip?
So the groups range from 8 to 10 in a week. And generally the guides are 2 guides. So it's a group of 12 all in all. Some of the groups are run so that you literally ride in a line. It sounds like nose to tail, but it's not, because again, you're riding at pace. And again, you're responsible for keeping a distance between yourself and the horse in front of you. They will tell you what order to go in because they know which horses are more forward going and which are a little less forward going. So, but 10 to 12, 12 would be the 2 guides. So generally 8 to 10.
All right. So is it in a field? Is it on paths, or is it a lot of different variety?
It's totally a variety. It depends on the destination. Generally speaking, it's not on the flat. I mean, there are meadows and fields that you'll go through, but a lot of it are wooded, wooded areas. Sometimes you're climbing up hills to get to a scenic overlook where you can have fantastic pictures. It's really varied. There are water crossings along the way, but not raging rivers or anything like that. But yeah, no, it's varied.
And what about what everybody's bringing with them? Is that, in a vehicle that's brought to the next location? How does that part work?
Right. So we send you a basic packing list before you go. We always say that you should bring your own helmet and your boots and half chaps or whatever it is that you normally ride in at home. Many of our places do have helmets. We always still recommend that you bring your own just for fit purposes. But for your clothes, we'll tell you whether or not, you'll need anything fancy. Typically not anything super fancy like this is a dress. This would be fine for one of the nicer dinners with the white tablecloths. But your luggage is then transferred by vehicle. So every day you just get up, you take your water bottle and you get on your horse and you don't worry about it. It's like magic.
And is it Western or English or both?
It depends on the destination. So we do have quite a few Western oriented rides. Most of those are here in the US. In Europe, they're starting to come along. We have a beautiful, like amazing off the charts Western ride in Tuscany. It's quite luxurious and really fantastic. But we also have a couple of Western rides in Ireland. But some of these places like Spain and France, they're not there yet. It's English.
Right.
But I will say it's important to know even the English rides are not close contact saddles. They're more like English trail saddles. So they have a deeper seat. They have nice big padded knee rolls. Like you can really sort of sit right into it. They're quite comfortable. The only adjustment that a Western rider would need to make is that they have the regular stirrup irons and leathers as opposed to the big fender.
I went to Hungary on a trip like that. And one of the things I remember is going into these small towns and kind of walking and being able to see the living conditions, the things that people do in the very, very small towns. Do you have some specific memories of the trips that you've done?
Oh, sure. I mean, and in fact, quite a few of them still do things like that. We have this trip in Spain, and it's called the Sierra of Gredos, Spain. And you gallop through these meadows and then you walk into the town, and these towns are old. I mean, the streets are like this. And as you remember, the sound of the horse's hooves on the cobbled streets it just echoes. And it's so fun because the people start coming to the windows and they're looking out, and you're riding to this old fountain in the middle of town where the horses are watered. It's where people go to get water. And it's, really, really, really special. We do that also on our Bordeaux ride in France. So for all of you wine enthusiasts out there, that's a super fun one because you're tasting some pretty fantastic wines along the way. But it's also in Italy. It's just really neat to sort of see these villages, these quiet, quaint villages. There's no traffic. People are sitting outside. It's generally women who are sitting outside and they're preparing vegetables. They're skinning vegetables for the meal, or they're hanging laundry. It's really, 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 it's a special experience.
Well, I have to say this has been a special experience for me. I have one more question I want to ask you before we close. I heard that you did something with beer and Cheetos.
Yes. Oh, we have so much fun. So on our domestic rides, one of the fun things that we like to do is, and this is a real popular one, is you take an afternoon ride. It leaves about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you have a fun, varied ride, some really fun canters through the countryside. These rides are in Arizona and also in Montana. So, and they happen on, they're all run by the same partner, just different locations. So you have this super fun ride on your horse, and then you pull up, and there are these chairs set out and coolers with all different kinds of beer. They also have soda or water for those that don't want, but their IPAs are actually lovely if you're in that crowd. But yeah, and Cheetos. Yep. So we call it the beer and Cheetos ride. So you have your little sundowner, and then you get back on your horse and off you go. We do have, by the way, I should say, an alternative version, which is the wine and cheese one as well. So depending on your vibe, you can pick beer and cheese, or you can pick beer and Cheetos, or you can pick the wine and cheese one.
Well, I tell you, I'm inspired to do one of these rides. They sound so fantastic, and I know I've enjoyed every one that I've been on. So I want to thank you very much for chatting with me, and I am Diana DeRosa reporting for the Equus Radio Network.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please let us know. Email Diana at equustelevision.net. Join Diana every week for another interview with the people who help shape your equestrian experience, right here on the Equus Radio Network.